Hey, it's David. On today's episode, we're going to talk about questions to ask while visiting a college and how not to make admissions officers fall asleep while reading your essays. So you're visiting Duke. Have a great visit. I think that a lot of students obsess about questions to ask the tour guides, to ask admissions officers during the information session. And if you have some questions that you can't look up beforehand, feel free to ask them, but don't feel obligated to ask questions. I think a lot of students while on tours, and especially a lot of, let's just say, just call it like it is, obnoxious parents ask questions during the tours because they like to hear themselves talk, or maybe they think they're going to get some bonus points, or there's going to be a checkbox on their application file that they ask a very probing question. And usually that probing question that a parent might ask relates to dining or housing, and it's just an unnecessary question. On tours, you're probably going to visit dining halls, you're going to visit housing. I rarely find that's a make or break issue. To be honest, you're visiting the school, you've taken time out of your schedule to visit the school. Something would have to go horribly wrong, right, for you not to apply. So you're probably going to apply. Don't look at the tour as necessarily a binary. I'm going to apply if the tour goes well, if the visit goes well, or I'm not going to apply. You're probably going to apply. Instead, look at the tour, look at the visit as an information gathering session. You can gather a lot of school-specific research to then use in your supplement essays. So look at it as a kind of investigative mission as opposed to your chance to stump the admissions officers or stump the tour guide with a question on the dining program or the housing program, something like that. So if you have a question, ask it, but don't feel the need to necessarily ask a question in front of the entire tour group just to hear yourself talk. I think that happens way too much. Enjoy the visit, enjoy the college, have fun with your family, and gather a lot of research on the university that only an actual student would know, so that it implies that you're maybe talking to professors, students, at the very least, just taking a lot of notes on what it's like, what you see, what you think the average day in a student's life might look like. How do you make admissions officers not fall asleep while reading your essays? That's a good question. I think open with something strong, a strong hook, maybe a visual scene that the reader can see, maybe something very visceral, life or death moment. At the very least, the first couple sentences need to be strong, grab the reader's attention, and then realize as soon as you've hooked the admissions officer and that he or she has realized, oh, this is actually going to be an interesting read, I'm going to perk up, sit up in my chair, and pay attention. Once you have the admissions officer's attention, then you can be a little bit more subtle with your points. But the first couple sentences, the first paragraph needs to catch the reader's attention. But once you have it, like I said, you can be a little bit more elegant with your points, show instead of just simply tell whatever point you're trying to make, and overall be more subtle and tactful, and use all these great storytelling tactics that you've learned in your English classes to really tell your story and express your point. But open strong, that's one way to make sure that the reader's paying attention. And definitely don't open with a broad summary of what you're going to say in an essay, with a thesis statement. It's incredibly boring. I mean, imagine if you're seeing a movie and in the first 5 minutes you have a summary of the entire film. Incredibly boring, first off, and you also have no credibility if you open with a larger point that you're trying to make about humanity and that you know everything, a larger kind of moral of the story in the first paragraph. First off, that's boring, and you also don't have any credibility because you haven't shown that you've lived it, you haven't told your story. So if you want to have a concluding paragraph that's a little broader, maybe in summary of the larger points that you make in the essay, that's okay, because you throughout the essay earn the trust of the reader, you've earned credibility through explaining your stories, through just overall writing a great essay. The reader would be a little bit more tolerant of a say, boring in summary paragraph in the conclusion. But usually if you've just told a great story, you don't need that summary paragraph. You could have it, and if you do want to include it, put it at the end, but you don't necessarily need to, and you don't want to explain what's going to happen in the essay in a broad, boring way, especially in the opening paragraph. Something exciting, something life or death, or at the very least a very visual pensive, you could be more thoughtful, but have the reader see you be thoughtful. It doesn't necessarily need to be life or death. It doesn't necessarily need to be an action-packed hook intro. That helps. If you want to do something a little bit more thoughtful, make sure it's visual. Make sure the reader can put himself in your shoes. That's a great way to start the essay. And like I said, once you have the reader's attention, then you can take your time in the body paragraphs to develop your story. There are little tactics that you can employ to keep the reader's attention throughout the essay, to make sure that the middle of your piece doesn't lag. But like I said, in the body, you can take your time once you have the reader's attention in your hook. So these are the questions for this week. Feel free to send in more. I'm happy to help, and feel free to look in the description, visit my website for some more great resources. Thank you guys for watching so much. Keep going with the process. I mean, every week, if you're just making improvements to your application, if you're writing, if you're doing all the things you need to do to create a great application, in a couple months, whenever your deadline is, I think you're going to be amazed with where you stand. And regardless of the results that you receive in the spring from colleges, you'll be happy that you did a great job and you put your best foot forward.